I still remember the chill that ran down my spine when I got that calendar invite from Melissa. Quick chat, my office, 4:30 p.m. Just 3 hours after I'd signed the biggest deal in our company's history. A $2 million contract with TechGov Solutions that took me 6 months to land. 6 months of late nights, perfect presentations, and building trust with a client everyone said would never sign. Congratulations on the TechGov deal, Melissa said with a quirky smile. Her voice was smooth as glass, but just as cold. HR Director Dave sat beside her, looking down at his tablet. Thanks, I replied, still riding high from the win. The team is thrilled. About that, Melissa slid a white envelope across the table. We're letting you go, effective immediately. My stomach dropped. Performance issues and failure to align with company values, and yes, also lack of team collaboration, she continued. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd just brought in $2 million and she was firing me? Dave wouldn't meet my eyes as he pushed termination papers toward me. As I walked out with my small box of belongings, one thought kept running through my mind. She had no idea what was about to happen. The text started before I even reached my car. What happened? From Jake in sales engineering. Tell me this isn't true. From Aisha in client success. Word was spreading fast. I drove home in a daze, rain pounding on my windshield, matching the storm in my head. My phone buzzed with a message from Wei, my lead developer. Meeting. Tonight, Milo's bar, 8 p.m., everyone's coming. I walked into Milo's to find my entire team huddled in the back booth, 6 faces looking up at me with a mix of anger and concern. Wei, Aisha, Jake, Ryan, Tommy, and Marcus. The core team that had helped me land TechGov. She's been trying to push you out for months, said Tommy, showing me emails where Melissa had removed my name from reports. She told executives you were difficult to work with, right after you got that promotion. What Melissa doesn't know, said Jake quietly, is that TechGov only signed because of you, and that contract has a special clause. I had insisted on the 90-day opt-out clause because TechGov had been burned before. If at any point in the first 90 days you're not satisfied, full refund, no questions asked, I'd promised. I never thought we'd need it. Now it was my secret weapon. Back at home, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. I had been keeping a document I called my records folder. Every win, every email where Melissa took credit for my work, every client who specifically asked to work with me. I had screenshots of sales dashboards showing my numbers compared to everyone else's. I stared at the file, taking a slow sip of wine. This wasn't about revenge, this was about value. Mine and my team's. We had built something amazing together, and Melissa thought she could just take it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What if we built something new? Something better? By midnight, I had a business plan drafted. By 2 a.m., I had a name, Phoenix Strategies. By dawn, I had a website template and a clear vision for what came next. I'm starting my own firm, I told my team 3 days later. We met at my apartment, away from prying eyes and office gossip. I'm not asking any of you to quit. This is a huge risk. Silence hung in the air for a long moment. Then Wei spoke up. What's the timeline? Because I already drafted my resignation letter. One by one, they all said the same thing. They were in, all 6 of them. We spent the next hour planning our exit, quiet, professional, by the book. No drama, no stealing clients, nothing that could come back to bite us. What about TechGov? Asked Marcus. They've been calling me non-stop, asking where you went. I smiled. Let's just say I have a meeting with their CTO tomorrow. They're unhappy about the changes to their account team. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You're going to poach them, aren't you? I'm not poaching anyone, I replied. I'm just having coffee with an old friend who happens to control a $2 million budget. The TechGov CTO, Diane, was waiting for me at the coffee shop, her face tense. They assigned some junior account manager to our project, she said. He didn't even know what API integration we needed. I kept my face neutral as I sipped my latte. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be sorry. Be our solution, Diane replied. Look, we signed with your company because of you and your team. We trusted you. I appreciate that, but nothing. We're invoking the opt-out clause. I've already told your finance department. She slid a business card across the table. This is our legal counsel. The paperwork's being processed today. I stared at the card. This was happening faster than I'd planned. So, Diane continued. When can you start your own shop? Because we want to be your first client. I couldn't help the smile that spread across my face. As a matter of fact, Phoenix Strategies is already set up, but I want to be clear, I didn't leave to steal clients. Diane laughed. You didn't steal anything, we're choosing you. The next Monday, all 6 of my team members submitted their resignations. No dramatic speeches, no confrontations, just formal letters and 2 weeks' notice. Professional to the end. I imagined Melissa's face when she got the news. 6 resignations in one day, including her entire TechGov account team. I was sitting at my new makeshift office, actually just my dining room table, when Marcus called. It's chaos, he whispered. Melissa is screaming at HR. Jake just texted that she tried to cancel all our access immediately. But IT refused because there's no transition plan. Stay calm and professional, I reminded him. We don't need anything from her or the company. I know, but you should see the Slack messages. Everyone's asking questions. The CEO called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. I paused. The CEO? Not Melissa? Exactly. Word is, he's asking a lot of questions about the TechGov contract. Apparently, they've officially requested that refund. I hung up and leaned back in my chair. Things were moving even faster than I'd hoped. The pieces were falling into place, and I hadn't had to push any of them. 2 weeks flew by in a blur of LLC filings, bank account setups, and insurance paperwork. My apartment was now officially Phoenix Strategies headquarters, with laptops crowding my coffee table and whiteboards propped against the walls. My team's last day at the old company came and went. They walked out with their heads held high, and the very next morning, they walked into my living room as Phoenix employees. Wei had already set up our secure servers. Aisha had drafted our first marketing materials. Jake had built a CRM system from scratch. We were small but mighty, and we were ready. Then came the text I'd been waiting for, from a former colleague still at my old company. TechGov refund processed. $2 million hole in quarterly revenue. Emergency board meeting called. I couldn't help but smile. I hadn't stolen anything. I hadn't violated any agreements. I had simply built something new, and the client had followed. That afternoon, I got another message. This one from a number I didn't recognize. This is Alex Wilson, board member at your former employer. We need to talk. So let me get this straight, Alex said, stirring his coffee across from me in yet another quiet cafe. You closed the biggest deal in company history, and Melissa fired you 3 hours later? I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. That's correct. And then your entire team quit within 2 weeks? They made their own choices, I replied. And now TechGov has canceled their contract and is working with your new company instead? I met his gaze directly. They exercised a clause I put in their contract to protect them. A clause Melissa approved, by the way. Alex sat back, his expression somewhere between impressed and alarmed. The board had no idea about any of this until the quarterly projections collapsed. Melissa told us you were let go for performance issues. I pulled out my phone and showed him my sales dashboard, screenshots I'd taken before leaving. I was the top performer for 6 quarters straight. I brought in 43% of new business last year. Alex rubbed his temples. This is worse than we thought. Melissa has some serious explaining to do. That's between you and her, I said, standing up. I've got a company to build. Phoenix Strategies was growing faster than I dreamed possible. By the end of the first month, we'd moved out of my apartment and into a real office. Small, but real. TechGov had signed a new contract with us, $2.5 million this time, with a longer commitment. Word was spreading through the industry. My LinkedIn profile was blowing up with connection requests. Former clients were reaching out, asking about our services. I was in the middle of a team meeting when my phone buzzed with a text from my old colleague. Melissa just got grilled in the board meeting. She couldn't explain the revenue drop or the team exodus. The CEO looked ready to explode. I put my phone away, refocusing on our team discussion about scaling operations. What happened at my old company wasn't my concern anymore. After the meeting, Wei hung back. Have you seen this? He asked, showing me an industry newsletter on his tablet. There was a small item about executive changes at my former company. Melissa Reynolds taking temporary leave to focus on strategic initiatives, it read. We both knew what that meant in corporate speak. I smiled. Let's focus on our next client pitch. 3 months in, and Phoenix was thriving. We'd hired 4 new people and moved to a bigger office. Our reputation for quality and reliability was spreading fast. TechGov had referred us to 2 other government agencies, both looking for similar solutions. I was reviewing our quarterly numbers. We were already profitable, a rare feat for a startup, when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Rachel Chen?" a familiar voice asked. My old CEO, Martin Cruz. I hadn't spoken to him since before I was fired. "Yes, this is Rachel," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I think we need to talk," he said. "In person, if possible." We arranged to meet the next day at a restaurant downtown. I spent that night wondering what he wanted. To threaten legal action? To make amends? To buy us out? When I walked into the restaurant, Martin was already there, looking older than I remembered. The past few months had clearly taken their toll. "Rachel," he said, standing to greet me. "Thank you for coming. I think I owe you an apology." "Melissa is gone," Martin said after we ordered. "The board voted unanimously to terminate her contract last week." I nodded but said nothing. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. "We've lost 3 more major clients since you left," he continued. "The investigation revealed that Melissa had been undermining several top performers, not just you. She saw talent as a threat, not an asset." "That's unfortunate," I said carefully. Martin leaned forward. "Rachel, I want you to come back as our new VP of Sales and Customer Success. Full control of your department, significant equity, and a seat on the executive team." I nearly choked on my water. "You're offering me Melissa's job?" "A better version of it," he nodded. "And we'd like to discuss acquiring Phoenix Strategies. Your team would all have positions, of course." I studied his face. He was serious. "Why would I sell a successful company that I built from nothing in just 3 months?" "Because together we could be bigger than either of us alone," he said. "And honestly, because we're hemorrhaging talent and clients, we need you." I promised to think about it, knowing already what my answer would be. "They want to buy us?" Wei asked, eyes wide. I'd called an emergency team meeting to discuss Martin's offer. "Yes," I confirmed. "Very generous terms, actually." "But we'd be working for them again," Aisha pointed out. "The same company that threw us away." "Not exactly," I said. "Melissa is gone. Martin seems to have learned a hard lesson." Jake shook his head. "I don't trust it. They're just trying to stop the bleeding." I looked around at the team we'd built, the company we'd created from nothing. Our whiteboard was filled with plans for the next 6 months. New clients, new products, new hires. "I think we should stay independent," Tommy said quietly. "We're building something special here." One by one, they all agreed. Phoenix was ours. We'd built it from the ashes of rejection and underestimation. Why would we give that up? I called Martin the next morning with our decision. "We're flattered, but we're staying independent." There was a long pause. "I was afraid you'd say that. Can we at least discuss a strategic partnership?" I smiled. "Now that's a conversation I'm willing to have." 6 months after being fired, I stood at the podium of the Regional Business Awards, accepting the Emerging Company of the Year award. Phoenix Strategies had grown to 20 employees. We'd moved to an even larger office. Our client list included government agencies, tech startups, and even a few Fortune 500 companies. Success is the best revenge, people often say. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about creating something valuable, something true. "This award belongs to my entire team," I said into the microphone. People who believed in a vision when all we had was a dining room table and a dream. From the corner of my eye, I could see Martin in the audience. My former company had been nominated for an innovation award, but hadn't won. Their stock price had taken a hit after 2 consecutive quarters of missed targets. After the ceremony, Martin approached me. "Congratulations," he said, and I could tell he meant it. "You've built something remarkable." "Thank you," I replied. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. "Our partnership has been good for both companies," he finally said. I nodded. The strategic partnership had been a smart move. They referred clients that were too small for them to us, and we helped them with specialized projects that required our expertise. At the 1-year mark, Phoenix Strategies had grown to 35 employees and moved into our permanent home, a full floor in a downtown high-rise with our logo proudly displayed in the lobby. I sat in my office, looking at the framed photo of our original team around my dining room table. So much had changed in a year. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Curious, I opened the app and froze. Melissa had viewed my profile. I hadn't thought about her in months. Last I'd heard, she was struggling to find a new executive position. Too many questions about her sudden departure from her last role. Out of curiosity, I checked her profile. She was now a leadership consultant, often code for between jobs. Her recommendations section was notably empty. As I put my phone down, Wei knocked on my door. "The TechGov team is here for the quarterly review," he said. I pushed thoughts of Melissa aside. She was the past. Phoenix was the future. I grabbed my tablet and headed to the conference room where Diane and her team waited. "Ready to talk about expanding your contract?" I asked with a smile. "Is it true you're considering an IPO?" The reporter from Tech Business Journal leaned forward, recorder in hand. I laughed. "We're 18 months old, but we are considering a Series A funding round to accelerate growth." The profile they were writing had a working title I found amusing. Phoenix Rising, How Rachel Chen Built a $15 million Company from the Ashes of Corporate Politics. A bit dramatic, but not inaccurate. After the interview, I checked my calendar. I had a coffee meeting with Alex Wilson, the board member from my former company who'd reached out after my firing. He'd left the board 6 months ago and was now a venture capitalist looking for promising investments. "You've done what most entrepreneurs only dream of," Alex said when we met. "Built a profitable tech company with no outside funding." "We've been careful," I replied, "grown only as fast as our revenue allowed." "That's why I'm interested," he said. "My firm wants to lead your Series A, no pressure to grow unsustainably, no crazy expectations, just fuel for your already running engine." I studied his face. "Why us specifically?" Alex smiled. "Because I watched your old company fall apart without you. I've seen what you can build, and I want to be part of what you build next." The investment deal closed on a Tuesday. $10 million in funding to scale Phoenix strategies to the next level. The press release went out Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, my phone was ringing nonstop. Most surprising was a call from Martin. "Congratulations," he said. "Major milestone." "Thank you," I replied, genuinely touched by his call. "I have to ask," he continued. "We've lost another VP of sales. Would you consider?" I had to laugh. "Martin, I just closed a funding round to expand my own company. Why would I come back now?" He sighed. "Can't blame me for trying. Your replacement hasn't worked out. Neither did her replacement. We haven't recovered from losing you and your team." For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered sitting across from Melissa and HR Dave, being handed termination papers hours after my biggest win. "I can recommend some good recruiters," I offered. After we hung up, I sat thinking about how different things could have been. If Melissa had supported me instead of feeling threatened, if the company had recognized our value, they might still be thriving, but then Phoenix wouldn't exist. Sometimes rejection is just redirection. 2 years after being fired, I took the Phoenix team on a company retreat to celebrate hitting $20 million in annual revenue. 35 employees had grown to over 100. Our client list read like a who's who of the industry. On the last night, around a bonfire at the beach resort, Jake raised his glass. To Rachel, who turned the worst day of her career into the best decision of her life. Everyone cheered. I felt a lump in my throat as I looked around at these people who had taken the leap with me. Later that evening, scrolling through news on my phone, a headline caught my eye. Mid-Tech Solutions announces major restructuring. My old company. I clicked the article. They were laying off 30% of their workforce after being acquired by a larger competitor. I put my phone away and rejoined the team celebrations. That wasn't my story anymore. This was my story, building something valuable with people I respected. The next morning, as we were checking out, the resort manager approached me. "Miss Chen, there's a message for you at the front desk." It was a handwritten note that simply said, "You were right. I was wrong. Congratulations on your success." "She actually sent you a note?" Aisha asked when I told her about Melissa's message on the drive back from the retreat. I nodded. Apparently she's working at the parent company that acquired Midtech. "Does it feel good? The vindication?" I thought about it for a moment. It's not about vindication, it's about growth. Hers and mine. That afternoon, I got a LinkedIn message from Melissa herself. I've been following Phoenix's success. What you've built is impressive. I learned hard lessons from our past interactions, lessons I needed to learn. No response necessary, just wanted to acknowledge your achievement. I stared at the message for a long time. 2 years ago, this would have felt like victory. Now it just felt like closure. After careful consideration, I wrote back, "Thank you for the note. I hope you're well." Short, professional, human. We didn't need to be friends, we didn't need to rehash the past, but we could acknowledge each other's humanity. She replied almost immediately, "I am well, thank you. Different, but better." Sometimes the most surprising growth comes from the harshest cuts. As we approached our 3rd anniversary, Phoenix Strategies was featured in Fortune's Companies to Watch list. The photo shoot took place in our headquarters, now expanded to 3 floors of the downtown high-rise. "How does it feel to be a success story?" the photographer asked as he adjusted lighting. "Like we're just getting started," I replied. The truth was, success felt both better and less important than I'd imagined. Better because it came with freedom and impact. Less important because I now understood that the journey itself, building something meaningful with people I respected, was the real reward. My assistant knocked on the door. "Rachel, TechGov is on the line. They want to discuss the new contract." TechGov, our first client, was still with us 3 years later. That $2 million contract had grown to a $15 million annual partnership. As I picked up the phone, I caught sight of the small framed photo on my desk, our original team around my dining room table, day 1 of Phoenix Strategies. From rejection to empire in 3 years. "Diane," I said warmly into the phone, "let's talk about what's next." The acquisition offer came out of nowhere. A tech giant wanted to buy Phoenix Strategies for $200 million. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, and I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before calling an emergency leadership meeting. "That's a lot of money," Wei said, eyes wide. "It's not about the money," I replied. "It's about our mission, our independence." "Would we stay on?" Aisha asked. "Run Phoenix as a division?" "They're promising autonomy for at least 3 years," I said. "But you know how these things go." We debated late into the night. The offer would make all of us wealthy, especially our early team members who had equity. But we'd be giving up control of something precious. The next day, I called the tech giant's CEO. "We're flattered by your interest, but Phoenix isn't for sale. We're committed to staying independent." "Name your price," he countered. "Everyone has a number." I smiled, though he couldn't see it through the phone. "It's not about the number. It's about the vision, but we're open to strategic partnerships if you're interested." After I hung up, I walked through our office, watching our team work. Some things were worth more than millions. "We're opening a London office," I announced at our quarterly all-hands meeting. The team cheered. Phoenix Strategies was going global 3.5 years after starting at my dining room table. My phone buzzed during the celebration. A text from Martin, "Midtech is shutting down, thought you should hear it from me." My old company was being fully absorbed by its parent corporation, the brand disappearing entirely. I felt a strange sadness. Not for Melissa, not for the way I'd been treated, but for what could have been. A good company derailed by bad leadership. After the all-hands, Wei found me in my office. "You okay? You look distracted." I showed him the text. He sat down across from me. "You know it's not your fault, right? You didn't cause their downfall." "I know," I nodded. "But it's still sad. A lot of good people worked there, including us once," Wei said. "And now we're building something better." He paused. "By the way, some of our old colleagues are looking for jobs. I thought maybe we could." I smiled. "Send me their resumes. Phoenix has always been about rising from the ashes." 4 years to the day after Melissa fired me, I stood on stage at the National Business Conference, delivering a keynote speech about resilience and innovation. "Rejection can be your greatest gift," I told the packed auditorium. "It forces you to reevaluate, to find your true path." 4 years ago, I was fired hours after closing the biggest deal of my career. Today, Phoenix Strategies operates in 6 countries with over 300 employees. The applause was deafening. As I scanned the audience, I spotted a familiar face in the back row. Melissa. After the speech, she approached me in the networking area. Older, humbler, but still recognizable. "That was powerful," she said. "Thank you for not mentioning me by name." I nodded. "This isn't about you, it never was." She smiled sadly. "I know that now. I was insecure and threatened by your success. I thought pushing you down would lift me up." She paused. "I was wrong." "We all make mistakes," I said. "The question is what we learn from them." "I learned a lot," she replied. "Too late for mid-tech, but not too late for me." She handed me a business card. "I started a leadership coaching program focused on supporting talent instead of fearing it. Your story inspired me to change." 5 years after starting Phoenix, we had grown beyond my wildest dreams. Offices in 12 countries, over 500 employees, annual revenue approaching $100 million. I still kept that photo of our original team on my desk. 6 people who took a chance on a crazy idea, who believed in me when I'd just been thrown away. Jake knocked on my office door. "Got a minute?" "Always for you," I smiled. Jake, my first sales hire, was now our global VP of sales. "You know that tech giant that tried to buy us 2 years ago? They're at it again, offering $500 million this time." I whistled. $500 million? "Yeah," Jake nodded. "That's never work again money for all of us." I looked out my window at the city skyline. "Schedule a leadership team meeting. We should discuss this together." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that conference room 5 years ago, Melissa's cold smile, the termination papers. The humiliation of being escorted out. If she hadn't fired me, I'd still be there, working for someone else's dream instead of building my own. Sometimes your worst day becomes your best opportunity. The leadership team meeting to discuss the acquisition offer lasted 6 hours. Everyone had a different perspective. "We could do so much with their resources," argued Tommy. "But we'd lose our culture, our independence," countered Wei. "What if we go public instead?" suggested Marcus. "An IPO would give us capital while keeping control." I mostly listened, letting everyone speak freely. This wasn't just my decision. Phoenix belonged to all of us. Finally, Aisha asked the question we were all circling. "Rachel, what do you want?" I looked around the table at these people who had become my family. "I want Phoenix to thrive for decades to come. I want our work to matter, and I want us to stay true to our values." In the end, we declined the acquisition offer and began preparations for an IPO instead. It would be a longer path, but it was our path. That evening, I wrote in my journal, 5 years ago, I was fired for being too successful. Today, I turned down $500 million to protect something more valuable, our freedom to build the company we believe in. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's creating something so valuable they can't help but recognize what they lost. Phoenix Strategies goes public. The headlines were everywhere. Our IPO had been a massive success, valuing the company at over $1 billion, a unicorn born from rejection. As we rang the opening bell on the stock exchange, I looked at my original team standing beside me. 6 people who had taken the biggest risk of their lives, standing on the biggest stage of our careers. Afterward, at our celebration lunch, Wei raised his glass. To Rachel, who turned a firing into a billion-dollar company. I shook my head, raising my own glass. To all of us, Phoenix isn't my company, it's our company. We built this together. Later that day, as things quieted down, I found a moment alone in my hotel room. I opened my laptop and navigated to a draft email I'd been considering for days. The recipient, Melissa Reynolds. "Dear Melissa," it read, "as Phoenix goes public today, I wanted to say thank you. Not for firing me, that was still wrong, but for creating the circumstances that forced me to find my true path. Sometimes our worst moments lead to our best opportunities. I hope you found your path too." I hesitated, then hit send. Not out of spite or triumph, but out of genuine gratitude for the journey. After all, without that humiliating moment 5 years ago, Phoenix would never have risen.